Welcome back everybody to the Wandering Samurai Study, in which we review and analyze every single act told in Rurouni Kenshin, and today's act is Act 68, a portrait of the ambitious. Alright, so I'm going to be real with all of you for just a moment. I procrastinated on recording this video all week. It's Sunday morning, the day that I normally finish these videos, and I'm barely recording. I look like I just woke up because I did not want to film this video because I felt like it was a little bit dense. I don't know if I have what it takes, but I'm here and I'm going to do it because we got to get to Act 69 and onward and forward. So let's get into the chapter summary review and we'll get into Shishio's ambitions. Saito and Kenshin arrive at Shishio's mansion in the village. They are greeted by the man who killed Okubo, but now he's just a guide. Inside the mansion, face to face with Shishio, Kenshin asks him about his motivations for taking over Shingetsu village, and Shishio begins to share, while Misao and Eiji plan to infiltrate the mansion themselves. Shishio mocks Kenshin for being so uptight, but ultimately reveals that he plans to take over Japan because he finds the Meiji government inferior to the world that existed during the chaos of the Bakumatsu. He plans to start a new revolution with him leading the charge under their survival of the fittest philosophy. Seeing as the fight between he and Kenshin is unavoidable, Shishio insists that they fight in Kyoto and summons Senkaku to fight Kenshin now. We're really gonna just focus on Shishio. But before we do that, I want to talk about our girl Misao Makimachi. Alright, so last chapter was a little bit weird because I didn't really understand the title of the chapter. I already forgot the name of the chapter, but the way that the chapter ended, it was with this intent that Eiji was kind of like a loose cannon, that he is likely going to do something crazy because of the situation that he is currently in with his family dead and the village turning their backs on him. And so this chapter kind of briefly follows up on that with Misao. Instead of being the sensible, older, responsible type, she goes, "You want to go in there? And you want to fight Senkaku? Hold it right there, because you're probably gonna need some help." Oh my god, I fucking love her. Oh my god, that is not the right response. But seriously, this very brief moment here, she mentions that she doesn't know what she would do if she found out that the Oniwaban were dead or murdered. It kind of asks us, the readers, to kind of just quickly think about what is going to happen when Misao inevitably finds out the truth. But before we can actually ponder on that thought, the story like quickly yanks us back from that thought with a joke when Eiji says, "Alright, just don't slow me down," and we get this picture of Misao kicking Eiji in the head. It's so good in that very brief moment because we were like, whoa, what is she gonna do? How is she gonna respond when she finds out? Here's Misao kicking Eiji. Alright, moving on. Alright, I get it. It's not gonna be a hot take to say that Shishio is a fantastic villain. But in this chapter where we really get to see the villain himself monologue for the first time and have words really come out of his mouth, where you get to understand who he is and he's presenting himself for the first time to the readers, Shishio is such a good antagonist. The way that they bring him in with kind of like snidely joking at Kenshin, having heard that Kenshin is a really uptight person, and when Kenshin just straight up asks him, like, "Why did you take over this village?" He's like, "The bats. Yeah, they soothe my skin. Really enjoyed the bats." knowing that there are people out there who are suffering and dying and actually dead. And that's the reason Kenshin is in there. The baths. I like the baths. Oh my god. It's like such a mockingly truthful statement. But, oh man, I just fantastic. No, but Shishio actually reveals that he wanted something on the Eastern Front. As we've already established several times that Shingetsu Village is part of the EC Road. So having Shingetsu Village as a place kind of to serve as a headquarters or a front for when he sets up whatever he intends to on the east side of the country, that's the reason that he took this village. Like, he's trying to kind of build up a front. But the onsens, or the hot springs, are kind of like the cherry on top. And because of his burn marks, I'm sure that he really does enjoy them. And that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to kind of have it just be upfront, like, yeah, it's this. And to kind of like take a jab at Kenshin and take a jab at his personality. Oh, but I also kind of forgot to mention that Shishio mentioning that the whole plan with the Eastern Front and all of that, like, it is a little bit like, let me tell you my grand plan, which isn't exactly what he's doing here, but Shishio even just sharing a little bit of his plan, and it's a very common storytelling method for the author to tell the audience his motivations, to reveal his plans and stuff. But I think that it works with Shishio where it wouldn't necessarily work in other cases, like when Cell tells Piccolo why he came to the past and kind of just monologuing his whole plan and his whole motivations and his whole reason for existing. I think that it works in the case of Shishio because Shishio is so overly confident. He can just say it. It doesn't mean anything to him by sharing this information. Like, he already established himself as somebody who kind of likes to have fun a little bit, and if he tells his enemies what his intentions are, it might make it a little bit more interesting for him because he feels that he's so overpowered and that taking over this country is going to be a cakewalk. So yeah, like I said, I think Shishio is just the perfect type of villain that can get away with doing something like this. But let's get into his motivations, why he has his plan, and now his reasons for it. There is something in this chapter here that said something along the lines that the Bakumatsu was like the first like semblance of chaos or something in 30 years. I don't exactly know what he's referring to. I don't know if there is a piece of history, Japanese history that I'm not thinking of, but the way that I understand it, and it may just be wrong because I don't know Japanese history extensively, but my understanding is that the Tokugawa era was one of the longest eras in Japan, spanning around 500 years or so, which was why it was such a big deal that the Meiji era came and ended the feudal system that was in place during the Edo era. That's the way I understand it. I don't know if it's accurate. So I don't know what this whole 30-year thing is about, but I know that the Bakumatsu is commonly believed to be the very end of the war, of the civil war. The civil war could be like this, but Bakumatsu, I believe it or I understand it to be this. The Civil War, Bakumatsu. Civil War, Bakumatsu. But I don't know. I don't really know. But the Bakumatsu was an era that, according to Shishio, really allowed men to kind of rise up and try to make a name for themselves. If you're gonna think American history, kind of think of like the gold rush. Like, think of like it's an era, or the Wild West. The western expansion after the Civil War. It was an era where like you can really just make a name for yourself. You can really go out there and just do what you want and be as ambitious as your heart desires. That's what the Bakumatsu represented to Shishio. But, however, because of him being burned by the Inshinjishi and left to die and not finishing the job, by the time that Shishio's wounds had healed, the Bakumatsu era was over. And in came the Meiji, which, again, this is all in the chapter, I know, but this is the reason that Shishio finds the Meiji government to be so inferior. Because they couldn't even take him out. And now they're afraid to knock him out. And that telling us why he is trying to take over the country is kind of interesting, because he really did just like that era, and I think that he was really trying to thrive in that era, and because he didn't get the chance to, despite him saying that he doesn't really hold any ill will towards the Inshinshishi for how they left his body, it's definitely a bit of a revenge story, it seems. But what I really found cool about this chapter here, with Shishio telling us what his plans are and his motivations are, is that already from this first dialogue that he has with Kenshin, is we've already seen that he's landed on the complete opposite side of Kenshin, where Kenshin wants everybody to have the right to live their lives despite how weak or warrior-like you may be. If you are a merchant and you just want to sell your craft and live a very peaceful life, you should be free to do so without worrying about being oppressed by somebody. Shishio, on the other hand, has a survival of the fittest mindset, and we've already established that here. Only the strongest have the right to live the lives that they desire, I guess. And in that, the Meiji government is a bit of a metaphor for the weak world that is Japan in the current moment, because he believes that the Meiji government has no right to exist in Shishio's survival of the fittest, that something so weak is now currently running the country, and they've displayed this by failing to kill him, and then being afraid to send an army to kill him because they're afraid of how the rest of the world would react. And I think that it's pretty interesting that even the Meiji government fits into this whole worldview that Shishio has of survival of the fittest, that it is not the strongest, and therefore it should not be at the top leading the country. And this has been Act 68 of Rurouni Kenshin. If you like this video and you want to see more, then consider subscribing to the channel, leave a thumbs up, and comment down something below about what you thought of this chapter. Shishio's motivations are cool and all, but definitely my favorite thing in this chapter was the whole moment with Misao. Gosh, I really love that character. Anyways, let me know what you guys think down below. Bye, chat. You want to go in there? And you want to fight Senkaku? Hold it right there, because you're probably gonna need some help. Oh my god, that is not the right response.